part of a function that's supposed to be building skills and capability, yet our ability to do things well, productivity gap, seems to be growing.
Okay, everybody, welcome. We're joined today by Simon Gibson, who is the Group Head of Learning and Development at Marks & Spencer. Simon has a varied career across a wide variety of sectors and different economic climates, from multinational corporates to finance, to retail, IT, sales, software as a service, solar energy, the list goes on and on and on. So a really exciting body of experience to bring to the conversation today. Simon is also joining iVentive's Learning Futures London in November at the Shell HQ. So looking forward to welcoming Simon to that, where he'll be talking about building a skilled workforce, embracing and investing in a skills-focused future. And it's that topic of skills that we're going to be discussing today. But Simon, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Nice. Thanks, Richard. Nice welcome. And yeah, pleased to be here. I've been about a bit, right? So that's okay.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and yeah, really looking forward to hearing your perspective on this topic, because we hear about skills so much across all of our events, from the L&D space to the talent and the leadership side of things as well. But I just want to start really for you. I think we've had to say that this is more than just a business problem. This skills issue really plays a lot into addressing the wider productivity crisis that we see, I think, particularly acutely in the UK, but across the world as well.
Yeah, look, I write about it. I get the chance to talk to good people like yourself and others who are willing to listen. Yeah, if you Google productivity gap, right, and see what comes up, predominantly in this country, there's a bit of an issue. And you know, maybe we'll talk a bit about this today and probably again in November and probably any other chance that I get to, which is we're part of a function that's supposed to be building skills and capability, yet our ability to do things well, productivity gap, seems to be growing, right? So there's a problem somewhere along that line. It's not just our problem, right? But we're a component of that potential solution, in my view.
Yeah. And so when you come to this question from the L&D perspective and in the context of M&S, how do we define the idea of creating a skilled workforce? What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, nice. Well, there's two things at play, right? And one thing is the economic climate, which you've alluded to at the start, right? Which says predominantly in this country, you know, things do happen in other countries. I do understand that, right? And outside of London as well. But like the economic climate, it's tough to find the right people, the cost of living crisis, post-pandemic, technological disruption. You know, the world is a very, very different place from just a few years ago. And that's making work really, really complicated. And then there's a second factor to that, which is a lot of suppliers seem to have stepped into a space, and or providers and or people who support our profession and our infrastructure, saying, well, do you know what you need to do is just find people with the right skills, like it was easy, right? Like everybody could do it to tomorrow.
If only we thought of that.
Yeah, oh great, glad they cleared that up, right? Thanks. Take the red pill or the blue pill, as I would say. So what does that mean for M&S? You know, it's just about us being really clean and simple about what are the skills and capability that keep us brilliant, that protect our magic, that make us a really trusted brand and a brilliant place to shop for our customers and for us to do the best we possibly can. Small caveat, we're not a charity, right? We have to make money and we have to do that well enough to continue to do all those things that are brilliant and why people think our products and our approach to food, clothing and home, etc. is amazing. So in answer to your question, it's, you know, building those skills and capability that keep the business afloat for another 150 plus years, right? Rather than not.
Yeah, and you talked about the climate there and the massive changes we're going through. I mean, probably even just a year ago, we wouldn't have been talking about a subject like artificial intelligence to the extent that we are now. And you talked as well about, you know, you can't just hire all the skills in when it's changing every job in the business to some extent or another. Does that in your view, you know, put all the onus on L&D, because you can't hire your way out of this problem in a way?
Well, but so I love it, Richard, right? I could riff for ages, right? About it. So one of the stats I use is if you go back to, and this is in the public domain, right? So if you go back to 2019, 2020, I think the list was Amazon, Apple, Meta, Alphabet, and I'll never remember the last one, but one other added 1 million technical jobs, right? Literally, in a heartbeat as a result of the pandemic and what was going on. And then towards the start of last year, we heard lots, and a bit before, about lots of people losing their jobs, and they've obviously now trying to right size. If you look at the data, they added 1 million jobs, they let go 50,000, right? 2 years later. So the supply demand issue that you're talking to of, we know we need more software engineering, prompt engineering as a result of AI, right? That didn't exist 12 months ago, did not exist, right? Yes, artificial intelligence exists. Yes, those tools have existed. How we've looked at data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence have existed in some guise. But pushing it to the forefront of business has meant, well, hold on, can we go out to the market and get those skills? Yeah, that's what the planet's trying to do, right? So I'm fascinated by every conversation. You can look at some of the data around boards, around top teams, around very big business, is the nervousness about having the right skills and capability for tomorrow. I'm doing that in inverted commas if you can't see me, right? But what are those skills and capabilities? Well, the data suggests it's just not physically possible to get them from the market all the time. So what are you going to go and do then, right? As a result, to complement that, or potentially stay fresh, relevant, and in a market competing before somebody else comes along and takes over your market share, what you were doing, how you were doing it. There's loads of examples every single week, right? Of that happening around us.
Yeah, thank you. And that it sort of leads you towards you need to be thinking creatively about these things. You've got to find alternative ways of doing it that may be beyond the obvious. So I just wonder what sort of initiatives are you pursuing at M&S? What sort of ideas are you developing, trying?
Yeah. So look, I'm not professing I have the answers every time, right? I've got lots of things wrong and a career littered with failed experiments, but I'm keen to try many things to find the right answer. So again, I think that there's something about your organization and its maturity or thirst for learning, development, and growth that will answer some of those questions. I like the skills bit that you're alluding to, because I'll make up a silly example, but I've done it before in my past. A warehouse operative who could write code. I didn't know he could write code, but if I'd known he could write code, and I can put him on a upskilling initiative, that is 50 to 60% cheaper than going out to market to buy that person. That's a real example, by the way, right? They've been geeking off at home. Oh, I can write Python, Simon. You didn't know that. Oh, you can put me on an initiative that turns me into a data analyst. Oh my God, I love this company. I'm invested. I know the customers. Like, it goes 10x, right? The engagement goes through the roof, but it's not about engagement just about the individual. It's about the business and the performance and how it works.
Because when all his colleagues in the warehouse see that he can have that kind of progression.
Yeah, and the investment, and and I know Amazon do that on scale, but look, we've got to stop looking at that. They're an anomaly on our planet, right? Those 4 or 5 companies I referenced earlier, just an anomaly. Microsoft, Amazon, love them, love their products, love their approach, got nothing against them personally, but I can't invest what they do, right? I don't have that time or resource. So I've got to try and do that on my scale or in my context, in a way with the resources that I do have, right? So to try and identify skills, to try and conduct smaller experiments, and the whole, I'll finish my ramble, but the whole digital and data literacy debate is quite hot for us, because part of our workforce has been doing this job for a long time in shops. We're trying to digitize, in essence, at scale, some of the things that we used to do. And that's a different skill set, not only for our customers, but also for our colleagues, right? So what some people might think is not that sophisticated is actually quite sophisticated for us to look at some of that data, talk to a customer on that digital journey, change the way that we can surface opportunity, versus, some really exciting, sexy data science course, right, on XYZ. I'm making up the example, but I'm trying to bring it to life for us. Actually, our base level is quite broad and consistent, and we're still constantly looking at ways to grow our data capability, digital literacy, that ultimately serves our customer, that ultimately means we sell more things, we do more things. And a final really simple example is, the kind of self-service checkout. I'm sure you've been in many. different retailers, right? That says, well, how about you process it yourself and put it in your own bag, Richard, right? Good luck. Well, guess what? I only need one person to watch 10
Yeah.
tills, right? Well, that's really interesting. But then that conflates our customer service challenge. We says, hold on, we want to give you really rich, brilliant customer service. We don't want you in a big queue. We don't want you waiting for ages. So we've got to find this balance of that right skill, right capability, and the right service
Yeah.
for our customer.
And how much of that is mindset as well? I mean, you talked about having lots of failed ideas that you've learned from in the past. If we were talking to a sort of Silicon Valley company, they would be that would be their entire ethos: is try things, fail, learn from it, do it differently. Kind of rapid progression, rapid improvement. When you're in a much more established brand like M&S, is that a difficult message to get across?
Yeah, of course it is, right? I'm sure if they're listening, my senior leaders wouldn't want me to go, well, hold on, Simon, don't keep telling them about all the stuff you got wrong, right? Tell them about the stuff that you got right. Look, it is mindset. I don't think it's about what I got learned. It's about what I learned. Some people don't like a thing. That's fine. Can I find out why they don't like a thing? Am I doing things that are adding value to people doing their job quicker, smarter, better, which ultimately results in, and I can connect to better serving our customers cleaner, quicker, faster. Great. Back to my productivity. I love this, right? You can't get away from productivity for us. If you were to if I took you into a shop now and we list out all the tasks that I've got you to do throughout the day, and we're quite programmatic because we've got economies of scale, and many other retailers are really similar, right? Well, guess what that doesn't do? It doesn't allow you a lot of time really to learn, develop, and grow that we're doing now, because I've got a desk-based role, in inverted commas. I can go, yeah, let's have a pause, Richard. Let's have a chat. Let's riff some ideas. Let's get some great stimulus. No. If you're on a 9-hour shift, right, working in one of our sheds, driving a truck, serving our customers back up, you ain't got time for this.
Yeah.
That's not built into my system, right? So the mindset and the psyche of where I think I can add value but challenge the status quo is, look, it's not the Matrix. I haven't got the red pill or the blue pill, and Richard could wake up and he now knows how to fly a helicopter. I'm going to need a serious amount of time and energy to work out, and I can work out the best way to maybe hack that and cut some corners. And I'm not saying do it because it becomes, quicker mean equals better, but for us to do that in the best possible way that reduces the time from you serving, talking to, supporting, or delivering to our customers. So that's my kind of mindset ramble or debate of it's mission difficult, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And can I want to go back actually to your guy in the warehouse. And we hear these sort of stories a lot about organizations that are trying to better map and record the skills that they have in their organization. And those are sort of very typical examples where someone might have a skill that falls outside of the 12 bullet points on their job description, and trying to capture that in a database. And there's all sorts of problems then associated with that, because the skills taxonomy on one system doesn't map to what you have on your LMS or your LXP, and how do you match those up? But are you trying any initiatives like that at M&S about capturing those kind of skills?
Yes, and right. So the latter first of, we'll have access to a taxonomy. It's got 20 odd thousand skills. We will be able to tag and meta tag and get adjacent, as people seems to be a new lexicon in our world, adjacent skills to better understand our workforce. But I think it's really simple, and the conversations we're kicking around at the moment, based on the back of that. And again, I'll talk a bit more about this in the session, or at any opportunity I get. I think it's 3 simple questions, and one is, high level, macro, department by department, area by area, business by business. What are the skills and capabilities you think you've got today? Question 2 is, well, what do you think you need for tomorrow? And tomorrow hasn't got to be far off. I'm talking 12, 18 months, maximum 2-year time frame, noting of the disruption we've been through. And therefore, what's the delta? Question 3, right? How big is that gap? If you want to do stuff in blockchain and you've got nobody that can do anything on machine learning, deep coding, artificial intelligence, large language model, I don't know, whatever it is, right? I'm trying to list some skills below that. Well, guess what? You've got a ginormous gap on blockchain. So then what can you do? You can go to the market and go, oh, right, to get a base level of blockchain engineers is that. And we roughly think we need 10. Oh, blimey, that's going to cost us 100. We haven't got 100. I'm then coming back going, well, what are you going to do then? right? I don't need a big skills framework. I don't need a massive set of taxonomies. I don't need loads of energy to work that out. What are we going to do? Well, we can go, well, let's take a punt. I'm making all this up, by the way. We're going to grow 5.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a punt that we can get the 5 from the market in X amount of months' time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole test and learn iteration approach applies to our work, right? But what I'm trying to say is, am I doing enough things that are adding value to the organization today? We've still got to keep the lights on, serve the customer, and build the organization of tomorrow. If you think you can wake up tomorrow and go, oh, I needed 10 of those people, let's go out and get them, forget about it, right? That's not going to happen in that way or that guise, right? So I'm all for the system. I'm all for the more structured approach, longer term capture the data, work with it. And it is moving fast. And I'm sure you know this, right? And lots of your partners will talk about how fast that is moving. Big companies, established companies, don't move that fast. Mm-hmm. They can't, can they? Because they've got rigor and discipline and quarter by quarter pressures to report, if you're listed or not listed, to investors, to report on performance. And so a bit of a longer term view always feels a bit, not countercultural, it's not the right words. It just puts friction in the system, right? To try and do that in a timely manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it sounds like, as you envisage it, the leaders and managers are really key in that process in terms of understanding the skills they have, understanding the direction that their team and their function are taking. How do you manage that conversation in a big organization?
Yeah, and I've done it in other companies as well, more recently, but in different sectors. Taking some time to understand, well, this is your makeup today. This is old school workforce planning, right? That's all it is. Nobody likes to really talk about it, right? But that's kind of what it is. But with a bit of a flavour of well, if technology can help us do that, and we can do it faster, and if we knew Richard could do some of that stuff, actually our investment in Richard would change, wouldn't it? So rather than a scenario of, I've got to invest 10 in Richard, if I knew that he did 1, 2, and 7 of our 10 things, actually I've only got to invest 4 in Richard. Well, hold on, there's commercial value to that. And it's those stories of balancing the hard and soft metrics of, how quickly can we get Richard up to speed in the new world, and will he start to add value, versus let's go out to market and find one of those. Well, how long is that going to take? How long will it take to recruit them, onboard them, get them up to speed? And so getting a leader and a manager to buy into that, you've got to invest in your own people, eat your own dog food, as I would say. We should be famous for growing brilliant people. This is back to my narrative at the start, Richard. I'm passionate about it. Look, I would love to keep people more skilled and employed, right? And if they decide to stay with my company, that's excellent, right? But if they carry on and go somewhere else, that's also okay, right? Because they continue to pay tax, they contribute to their economy, they drive funds locally, they spend money locally. There is a macro.
And they're net promoters for the career development that you've given them.
Yeah, but I'm not an economist, right? But there's a macro view of, but that's just good, right? That is just good for us to do. Or are you the guy that wants to put people out of work? No, I'm not, right? So somewhere in that equation, you're going to have to learn, unlearn, relearn, build skills, build capability, change, go, length of career. For people like us to potentially retire in the not too distant future is probably a bit of a pipe dream. At the moment, unless we win a significant amount in the lottery, right, which is slightly different.
Yeah, and I mean, we're at a point I could bring in so many topics here that we could go on for hours. But I did just want to bring this one in because you talked about that sort of return on investment that you get, and talking about you invest 10 in Richard. I'm all for investing as much in Richard as we can, by the way. You invest that money in reskilling someone. How do you measure the return that the business gets on that? How are you justifying that to the business?
Yeah, nice. I love this, right? And again, it's organizational context and appetite. I've worked in organizations where, let me be brutally honest, right? They didn't care. They didn't care. Money was no object. Swimming with cash. And again, I don't mean to be too capitalist in that environment. Today, how do we have to do it? I have to justify the time. The investment in the time does what to our sales, to our colleagues, to better serve our customers. And this is my, kind of preach of agile small a. What is the outcome that we agreed? If it's to help Richard do that thing quicker, great. I'm going to time how quickly Richard does it today. I'm going to do some stuff, and I'll time how quickly Richard does it after that. and then I can quantify the saving, can't I? We've done a really simple experiment on induction, for example. Do it this way, do it the other way. If I macro it up, that saves my company potentially £1 million in productivity, right? £1 million of colleague time. That's a big saving for us to potentially, not saying we're going to bank it because we go use it elsewhere, but if I've got that potential to serve more customers, see more customers, put more product out, well, actually that could be greater, many X greater than the potential to save £1 million of productivity. So I think everyone's got its own unique case, and I'm just trying to be as commercially savvy as we can around what are we saying we can do each time we ask for 30 minutes of Richard, half a day of Richard, 50 minutes. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what it is, right?
Yeah, great. And I guess looking at all of this and how it's the L&D team is not isolated from this. It's not everyone else needs to be reskilled and the L&D team sort of floats outside. When you look at your own team and your own skills, what do you think you and your team, well, what are you prioritizing? What should you be prioritizing when it comes to your own skill sets and your own capabilities?
Yeah, nice question. Look, I'd let my team answer that. They probably say I'm, very commercially driven, right? Which says I come with quite a strong business lens, and that lends itself to probably where I was born in my career. I wasn't born in this function, right? I did other things and had sales and relationship management roles, and that's always stood me in good stead. The reason I tell that short story is that's a critical skill, isn't it? Commerciality, business acumen, whatever you want to call it, isn't going to go away anytime soon in a world of economic shock, and every dime, cent and penny has to be accounted for. I like us putting time in that, analysing the numbers, analysing the data, which then comes to a second skill around our data capability and or our way to storytell, right? Third bit, I've understood the commercial impact. I've got enough data and evidence. Can I now tell a story that Richard buys and is eager to support or potentially thinking about supporting based on the evidence that I've talked about and how that comes to fruition? And obviously then there's some fun around just general experimentation, right? Artificial intelligence, some of these toolings and technological advances. It's just smart for us to get on the front foot and understand what that means to the world of work. It's not just our responsibility in our function, my function, but I think we could look, feel and sound very different than many other teams do if you were to kind of put us in a bit of a lineup, right?
Yeah. And what about you as an individual? What's your skills focus right now?
I'm passionate about reading far and wide, and everybody always asks me that question, right? I spend a lot of time looking at adjacent industries, looking into different areas, trying to understand what I can or where I can learn from, and or my own industry as well, right? I'm still learning every day in terms of what works, what doesn't work, what might work in my sector. So looking as wide and far as possible as I can.
Staying curious.
Yeah, exactly. It's the superpower.
Yeah. It is. Well, Simon, thank you. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground there in a short amount of time. I'm really excited to hear how the conversation goes in London in November when you get into this with your fellow heads of learning. But I just want to say thank you again for giving us your time, for sharing your ideas and your views. If you want to join Simon at that event in November, we look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible with Simon. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Look forward to it.